Well, hello again. This is Lloyd Sherman, and I'm back for part two. Again, I warn people that there will be comments made in here that will um, not make some people happy, um, but I guess I don't have to apologize for that because it's the way it needs to be. So, um, just a quick review. Part one, we talked a little bit about the background of why there needs to be a culture shift. But in a nutshell, uh, this group of people has to be working together as a team, and it has to be um, property owner focused and not staff focused. There's been too much emphasis on staff directing the focus around here and not enough property owner input and actually listening to them. So let's get on with some of my suggestions. The first thing I would do in an organization was look at their organization structure. And the one we have here is more of a functional, more of a hierarchical org chart, and it needs to be more functional. So um, my way of doing things is to, again, leave, obviously the property owners are at the top of the pyramid here. We have an elected set of board of officials. You have your GM. So from there, though, this person needs to have some assistance in watching over the day-to-day activities, and that needs to be done through two levels, at least two levels, let's put it that way, assistant GMs, and then breaking up the hierarchical chain into more of the functions. And so under this particular one, you would have several departments that would report directly to the general manager, and you would have several that reported to each of the general managers. Now, all of these with asterisks under this structure would be on a reduced base salary and upside of making potentially more by performance from results. And I don't mean results like the softball results we used to ask for. I'm talking about increasing revenues, decreasing costs. I'm talking about specific measures that at the end of the year you can determine whether they got there or not. If that doesn't occur, there's no motivation for any of this structure to do anything different than this structure. Because in this structure, this is your management team, where under the previous one I just showed, you had a three-person senior management team. And then the rest of this and this are falling out as functions. And all of these, most of these positions on here, if not all of them, are manager level positions. There's got to be some consolidation. I'm aware of several myself right now that could take place. The other thing I have difficulty dealing and understanding is that we've added to this org chart the positions that we've eliminated, and yet our compensation line this year is going to be the highest it's ever been, at least on the budget, and at 18.6 million, which when you compare that to the net assessments we receive, our compensation line alone, now that's salaries, benefits, um, is 130% of the net assessments we receive. That's not a winning recipe, and it needs to be dealt with. This was a good start, you know, the old attorney joke. Um, so, but it didn't go far enough, and the culture basically stopped it. So that's why this culture just needs to change. So under the one I'm talking about, the salaries are now based on financial performance. Again, a much reduced base with upside potential based on actual measurable financial results. As I mentioned, changing to a functional instead of a hierarchical, combining functions, and there's several that could be. But most of all, let's utilize the talent that exists within the village. We've got a myriad of experience here that, given the opportunity, they do a great job, and their hearts are in the right place. So let's utilize it. One of the first ones I would ask the board to assign would be a compensation and job description ad hoc committee to help within 30 days. To get this done within 30 days, you could put a committee together and get through every job description in the organization, benchmark it, and establish the org chart going forward. We just went through 6 months where the org chart didn't change for 6 months. So we weren't really doing anything. So, and there needs to be more interaction with the property owners to let them know what's going on in the operations. And I would propose doing that through monthly town halls. You might be able to move those to quarterly at some point, but you know, at first anyway, they need to be quarterly or monthly, excuse me. So let's talk a little bit about the board of directors. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows what my thoughts are on this, because I was with the group that intentionally changed it to the way that it should be, and then it got changed back to the way that it was, because that's the way we've always done it. So, at any rate, your board of directors, treasurer and secretary should be employees of the board of directors, not reporting to the general manager. That's a conflict of interest, and it doesn't look good from an auditing standpoint. The other thing that, well, let's talk about some ways we might make this happen. Let's start paying our board of directors a stipend. Pick a number, $250, $750. Make it enough that it would stimulate interest from more of the villagers that still want to work part-time, and they could do it by helping their community, but not so much that it would be jobs that would be available that would be life-sustaining. So much like a part-time job, because that's what this is supposed to be, is part-time volunteer work. And let's expand the qualifications for being a board member beyond simply being a property owner in good standing. You've got to have a breadth of knowledge on the board, and some of that has to be people who have been in positions of running operations, companies, putting their signature on the front of a check, something more than having been a successful business person. Set up a separate budget and hold the and let the board spend it on managing. I mean, that's what they're there for anyway. So, and like I said, secretary and treasurer, they need to be paid positions. Again, they should be part-time. So, again, pick a number, but enough money to entice somebody with the qualifications that can do these jobs, but not so much that this is a full-time job. And expand the number of people on the board to 9 to spread the workload. Organizations are notorious for, volunteer organizations, I mean, notorious for 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. Our board is probably no different. It wasn't when I was on there. So at any rate, that'll just help with the workload that actually does go to the board, because it's a non-win situation, position to take in the first place. So, like I said, I was glad that I waited for the Future Funding Task Force meeting, because I have some things I guess I'd like to say to them. I'd be glad to meet with them if they want to meet with me, and I might go into a few more details than I'm going to in here, but I think they can get the idea. So first of all, congratulations. The work that you've done is admirable. It was a different way of putting the information together. It quantified it much better than we've seen in the past, but we learned that we had a big red blob, and by that they described it as the needs that need to get done. Well, we already knew about that. That's nothing new. So I don't know. I was a little disappointed in that, because many of us that have been here for a while were well aware that we had a huge backlog that needed to get taken care of. My other concern that I have is that it took 3 months to get here with the data that they presented at this meeting. They have 2 left in their self-imposed, I guess, or board-imposed timeline. And here we go again, rushing an activity that is not even close to being done yet. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Not one dime of increased assessments until we know that the operation we have is functioning at optimum performance and at optimum use of the existing dollars. And I'm going to explain that in a little bit more here in a couple minutes. So the other thing I got out of it was we keep treating the symptoms instead of the problem. Again, the problem here is the culture that's been established and doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We're doing it with the garbage trucks right now. Seems like that should have been put off at least for another year, or at least until this committee got their work done. But no, we had to rush it through too, and because we were going to miss the interest opportunity. I'm sorry, I'm tired of hearing that. So I guess the message I want to send to the Future Funding Task Force is this: everything you do, if the culture doesn't change, you're going to pour whatever suggestions you do right back into the same machine that got us here. It's not going to get us anywhere, and it's going to wind up getting misused again. And while I'm on it, I didn't hear anything in the meeting where I saw any time and motion, work measurement people, operations type people that have run operations before, and actually know how to improve processes to get more value out of them. So, little concerned about that, but I wasn't asked on the front end, so there's that. So, why does all this make any difference? Well, because revenue and costs have got to work together for an overall value to come out of it. So we're going to use just $100,000 as an example here, but at the revenue line, if I bill $100,000 and I'm making a 1% profit margin, which we don't, our bottom line impact is then $1,000 per $100,000. Okay? So you're going to pour that into the funnel. That's coming out the bottom. Now, if you go after costs, the bottom line impact of finding $100,000, you poured $100,000 into the funnel and you got $100,000 out of the funnel. And the other thing that I would like to tell you about this approach, and that's why the job descriptions and managers have to be on these kinds of compensation plans, is that for every $1 million in savings, the assessments won't have to go up, and I realize it's being hidden by the picture, but by about $9 a month. Every month. So let's say you had a program where you were going to eliminate 10% of the POA cost somehow. And I believe it's probably still sitting out there, but wouldn't know until you got into the day-to-day activities. $3 million would be dropping to the bottom line if you did that. How much good would $3 million do to our overall requirements? So I'm running long. I understand that. I tried to keep this at 15 minutes. It didn't work. So what qualifies me to be giving anybody any advice? Well, I understand this culture and what is expected of the board. And I know how to drive operations to make that happen. I've been there. I've done it. When I was recruited to Mississippi, I walked into a very similar situation where the culture needed to be changed. And we built a team that took that place from 1.5 million to 58 million in 8.5 years. We were eventually acquired and we went public. As part of that acquisition, I was requested to go to the Texas region and take over a losing proposition of 8 offices there, along with 3 other states. So I had 14 offices and 500 plus employees and a budget back then in excess of $38 million. Well, I doubled the revenues in 2.5 years and took it from a losing proposition to 2 million bottom line. So I've had the experience of taking complex operations and making them tuned and operating properly. And then for the next 12 years, I was in my own consulting business, and my specialty was turnarounds. And that's pulling people that were on the verge of bankruptcy out of bankruptcy and where they continued to operate. I wouldn't want to be doing that in today's environment, but I enjoyed doing it back then. So, but mostly I'm a part of this community, and I want what is best for the whole community. I want everybody here to enjoy our active lifestyle gated community that has a vast reservoir of talented retirees that want to help. We just have to give them the opportunity. So with that, I'm going to end up by saying, keep my org chart in mind. I'm still available. I have others who wish to join me in this endeavor. And I hate to say it, but it's true. If there is consideration being given to one of the existing employees as your next general manager, they are part of the culture, and that culture has to change, and it won't change if you don't change the culture. So, future funding, if you have any influence, I would ask that you listen to me. Thank you for your time, and I'm always available if people have questions. So thank you, and have a good day.